Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, we are going to be breaking down the 2025 Puerto Rico Open. What makes this really interesting is that this is an alternate event on the PGA Tour. And so, this is going to be kind of one of the only times we're going to get to do two golf weeks here in the same week. But Puerto Rico Open playing alongside the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Very much looking forward to the fact that we've got two events going on this week. We've got two events to watch, and definitely looking forward to watching this one. This is going to be a pretty interesting tournament to break down. And so we're going to, on this episode, tell you everything that you're going to need to know about the Puerto Rico Open. We're going to deep dive the stats, tell you what you can expect from all the golfers that are in action this week. And then we are going to take a look at the board on DraftKings and the betting board and kind of see, what we can expect from this week. Who are the guys that we end up liking here this week? All right, so let's go ahead and cut the introduction there. While you're here, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That way you can be with us for the rest of the PGA Tour season, as well as all the alternate events as well. And if this video helps you out in any way, this is like the first Puerto Rico Open video we're doing. Make sure that you hit the like button. It really does help me out a ton when you guys do that. All right, so first things first, let's go ahead and break down the golf course. Grand Reserve, which is home of the Puerto Rico Open. So really, this is not a super complicated breakdown, right? Of course, we've got an ad on YouTube while I'm trying to show the video. This is not a super complicated breakdown. This is a golf course that is very much in line with the rest of the quote-unquote tropical golf courses on the PGA Tour. Quite simply, it has a lot of the same characteristics as Corrales, as Vedanta, as Mayakoba, as El Cardinal. So those are going to be the main crossovers this week. And really the main crossover that you're going to want to look for is the fact that all those courses feature paspalum grass throughout, specifically on the greens. So paspalum greens are generally pretty slow. They're generally pretty easy to putt on. You can see a lot of guys who are not exactly great putters have success on paspalum because the fact that they're slow, the fact that they have less undulation and less break makes them a lot easier for guys to get a hang of. Now, the other defining characteristic here of the Puerto Rico Open is that the course is quite long. It is over 7,400 yards, which is not something that we see every week on the PGA Tour. And in fact, it measures out at specifically 7,500 yards this year. So they must have lengthened it a little bit. And honestly, that's really the defining characteristic is the length. So you are going to have a lot of long irons in the greens here. You are going to be swinging driver as much as you can off the tee. There are a lot of dog legs. There are a lot of forced layups, but you're going to be swinging driver as much as you can because you want to bite off as much of the distance as you can to give yourself the shortest second shot because you don't want to have as much long irons as humanly possible. You want to try to give yourself those mid iron and short iron approaches. Now, other than that, there's not really a whole lot of defining characteristics to separate it from a lot of the other resort and tropical golf courses. The fairways themselves are quite wide. There's not a whole lot of penalty if you miss the fairway as long as you keep it out of the water. And really, this week, I think the main thing we're going to look at with this being an alternate field event is you really just want to target guys who have had success at these other resort type of golf courses. And I think you want to target guys who are in good form. And to me, that's kind of the two-pronged approach that we're going to be taking this week. And I'm really not going to be looking for a whole lot outside the box like that. So one thing that I do think is interesting, if you do look on Data Golf, which is one of my favorite golf data websites, you can look at who has played this course well over the years. And interestingly enough, the guys at the top of the board are guys who played here one and done, or they played here, they played well and never came back because it's an alternate event. The goal is not to be playing in this event every single year, right? So Victor Hovland has won this event. Akshay Bhatia has a runner-up. Jason Day has a good finish. Tony Finau won this event way back in the day. Bryson DeChambeau has a good finish. Andrew Putnam even has a T5 here. Nico Echeverria won and then defended his crown last year. So really you don't see a whole lot of guys routinely play this place year in and year out. So one thing I really do think I want to look for this week is I want to look at the guys who had top finishes, right? And I want to look and kind of use those guys to kind of formulate the characteristics that we're looking for this week and to kind of formulate the comp courses, right? So the obvious one that stands out is Akshay Bhatia and Tony Finau. Akshay having a runner-up here, Tony Finau having a win here. Both of those guys have played very well at the Mexico Open at Vedanta. So if it wasn't a crossover because of the agronomy, it's definitely a crossover because of the type of golfer that excels there. Other courses that Akshay and Finau have played well at in their career. Well, Finau has won the Rocket Mortgage. Akshay very nearly won the Rocket Mortgage last year. So I think you can put Detroit Golf Club on a comp list. Jason Day, I think you can put TBC Craig Ranch on a comp list because it is another long golf course that is quite easy, like this one can be. So I think that that's another natural comparison. So really, when we're looking at the key stats this week here at Puerto Rico, the stats that we're going to be looking at are strokes gained on approach. That is the number one most important characteristic. Especially in terms of recent form. We want guys who are in good form with their irons. I also want to look at total driving because with this being a golf course where there is going to be some dog legs and there are going to be some water hazards off the tee, I do want you to be accurate as well as long with the driver. I don't think that just being long with the driver or just being accurate with the driver is the way that you're going to want to go. I also want to look and see if you have good performance in the wind because the wind can pick up with this being a tropical location. I also want to look at performance at long courses and putting on past Palom greens, but I don't think that putting on Pass Palom is super duper important because we can see anybody putt well at Pass Palom. As we mentioned, my primary comp courses are going to be the other tropical courses, Vedanta, El Cardinal, and Corrales. And my ancillary stateside comps, I am going to use Detroit Golf Club. I am going to use TBC Craig Ranch. Two more that I looked at after deep diving the numbers. Keen Trace, which is home of the Barbasol Championship, is another one where there have been some guys that have had some crossover success, as well as the RSM Classic Sea Island Golf Course. So let's go ahead and now use that to take a look at the rabbit hole. So if you have been here with us for a while, you know that when I talk about the rabbit hole, I'm not referring to an actual rabbit hole. I am referring to the tool from BetSperts Golf called the rabbit hole, which allows you to use all kinds of custom filters and conditions to really isolate the micro skills that you can look at to figure out who's going to be good at a specific golf course. And it allows you to create a custom model based off of that. So this week, the first and foremost thing that I wanted to look at in the rabbit hole for this tournament was strokes gained total in the year 2025. Like who is playing the best out of the guys that are in this field. Top 10 in the field: Ryan Gerard, Wesley Bryan, Kevin Roy, Kevin Chappell, Bud Cauley, Justin Hastings, Michael Thorbjornsen, Nicholas Norgard, Hayden Springer, and Patrick Fishburne. Now, I wanted to do the same thing, but just for approach, because I do think that approach, first and foremost, is going to be an important stat this week. Henrik Norlander, Camilo Villegas, Lanto Griffin, Nicholas Norgard, Kevin Chappell, Justin Hastings, David Lipsky, Carl Phillips, Ricky Castillo, and Rico Hoey and Ryan Armour as your top 10 there. Then after that, I want to look at strokes gained total at just long golf courses, right? Because this is a long golf course, and I do think that a prerequisite for succeeding here is going to be playing well at long golf courses. In the top 10 in that category, we've got Hayden Springer, Chan Kim, Henrik Norlander, Dylan Wu, Matthew Jordan, Danny Walker, Joseph Bramlett, Bud Cauley, Brett White, and Aaron Baddeley. After that, I wanted to look specifically at approach on long golf courses. You know, how do you hit your long irons into those greens? You know, with a lot of guys on this week coming from the Korn Ferry Tour, coming from the DP World Tour, you know, limited starts on the PGA Tour. What I wanted to go way back in the database, and I just wanted to look at approach. I didn't want to look at proximity. And really this week, with a lot of those guys having, you know, results from mixed tours, I think that using strokes gained total as much as you possibly can is probably a pretty good strategy. Now, in terms of approach on long golf courses, we've got Henrik Norlander, Matthew Neesmith, Matthew Jordan, Russell Knox, Chesson Hadley, Justin Hastings, Lanto Griffin, Antoine Rosner, Blades Brown, and John Pack as your top 10. After that, I wanted to look at the comp courses, right? So let's just use the Pass Palom courses, the tropical courses, right? Who plays the best on those? Chan Kim, Carson Young, Henrik Norlander, Wesley Bryan, Bryce Garnett, Martin Laird. Hey, Bryce Garnett's your defending champion. Martin Laird, number 6. Kevin Chappell, tied for 6. Danny Walker, Nick Hardy, and John Pack. Actually, I'm being told that that's pronounced Pack at number 10. And then I wanted to look at strokes gained total on just Grand Reserve Golf Course, just this course. There's a ton of guys in the field that have not played it, but of the guys that have played it, Carson Young, Ryan Brehm, Hayden Springer, Ben Coles, Adrian Dumont de Chassar, Bryce Garnett, Chad Ramey, Henrik Norlander, Richie Wierenski, and Ryan Gerard is the top 10. And then the stateside comp courses that we talked about. That's TBC Craig Ranch, Detroit Golf Club, Keen Trace, and Sea Island. The best in the field at those: Hayden Springer, Ben Coles, Vince Whaley, Adam Svensson, Bud Cauley, Troy Merritt, Henrik Norlander, Brett White, Rico Hoey, and Chan Kim as your top 10 there. So when you throw all of that into a model, here's what we got for this event, y'all. We got number one golfer in the field, Henrik Norlander. I mean, that's the Puerto Rico Open for you, right? Now, Henrik Norlander will be a guy that I will be playing in DFS, and it's a very simple reason why. He has been elite with his irons recently. If you look at the recent form numbers for Henrik Norlander, he has been hitting his irons like as well as anybody on tour. I mean that. Like you look at the last three tournaments, gained over I have a stroke per round at the Phoenix Open, gained almost 10 strokes, or actually over 10 strokes for the tournament on approach at the Mexico Open. And then the Cognizant Classic, he gained almost a stroke and a half per round while missing the cut. So if you're somebody that is a believer in recent iron form, which I am, then Henrik Norlander has to be your guy this week. I don't know if I'm for sold on him being the number one golfer in the field. I don't know if I'm sold on him being, like a core play in DFS or an outright bet to win, but I understand why he came in number one in my model because I put so much emphasis on approach play. Now, number two is the guy that I think I actually want to get to and is going to be a core play for me this week, and I might dabble in a bet for him to win the tournament. That is Hayden Springer. So he's kind of a younger guy, has not had a whole lot of history on the PGA Tour, right? But when you look at his success, he has played very well at long golf courses. His proximity, he's pretty good at 200 plus, right? Like that's pretty good. And then in terms of his recent form, right, he was T45 at Mexico. Hey, that's one of our comp courses. He was 6th at the Farmers. That's not one of my comp courses, but that is a course that is quite long and is quite long iron intensive. He was T30 at the RSM Classic, but apparently he was pretty good on the champion or the A course, whatever they call it at Sea Island, because his numbers are pretty good. That the round that does not have the shot length at the Plantation course, he must have been poor at. And then you look last year at how he did. And he, the Keen Trace, which was one of my comps, he was T37. T10 at the Rocket Mortgage, that was one of my comp courses. Did miss the cut at Corrales last year, but he was T3 at this event last year. So he has history playing this golf course. He has good form coming in. He has everything I'm looking for at the comp courses. Hayden Springer is going to be one of my guys this week. I can guarantee you that. Now, another thing that I really think big time this week, more so than like any other week, well, really this event more so than any other event, when you're looking at an alternate event on the PGA Tour, there's not as much of a separation between the top guys in the field and the bottom guys in the field because they're all here for a reason. They're all here because they didn't qualify for the Arnold Palmer Invitational, right? So there's just not as big of a gap between the top and the bottom. So when you're playing DFS, what that means is you don't necessarily have to play two guys in the 10K range or anything like that. Like you don't have to spend all your salary if you don't want to. You can go either way with that. Now, granted, I'm generally somebody who likes to spend my salary because in theory those guys are slightly better than what you could be passing up in playing at shorter salaries, but I really do think that this is a week where you can go a little off the board, you can go a little funky, and if you're playing DFS, just pick a few guys to be your guys no matter what range they're at and fill in the rest of the lineup elsewhere. And like I said, Hayden Springer is going to be one of my guys. Another one of my guys this week is going to be Chan Kim. So Chan Kim is, if you're an approach play truther, which I am, he is a guy who is just a good approach player. And now, granted, the numbers coming in have been hit or miss, but he was T17 at Mexico and he didn't play well on approach. He putted the ball really well at Mexico, which I think is a really good sign for this. And then T32 at the Cognizant Classic, that's a pretty solid finish. Another long golf course, the Farmers Insurance Open, he was elite on approach. He finished T42 in that tournament. And then you look last year at his history at some of these other courses, T6 at Corrales last year. He played this event last year and made the cut. He was only T61, but T8 in Mexico. So he very clearly has experience on past Palom greens. He very clearly has experience at these tropical style golf courses. So Chan Kim is going to be a guy that I'm going to be pretty heavy on this week in DFS. Kevin Chappell comes in number 4 for me in my model, and I don't quite understand why. I mean, he has really good numbers on the tropical courses, the other past Palom courses. He has really good recent approach form, but other than that, like there's not a whole lot of boxes that he checks, even though he did end up coming 4th in my model. He's probably a guy that's really flown underneath the radar this year. He's kind of an older guy. He's not like a young grinder like a lot of these guys are, and he hasn't played an event this year, apparently. So, like, all the recent form numbers we're looking at are from last fall. So, that's not a good sign. I now understand why he's coming up in top of the model, because he hasn't been playing golf on the PGA Tour this year. So, probably not going to be for me this week, Kevin Chappell. Ben Coles at 7,700, I do like, though. He is generally a pretty good putter of the golf ball. He's generally pretty good at long courses. Remember, he almost won the Byron Nelson at TBC Craig Ranch last year. So he rated out really well at my stateside comps. He also has a history at this event where he played it pretty well the one time he showed up. So I do think that this is a pretty good Ben Coles course. He is going to be a guy that I'm probably going to play a ton in DFS. Now, after him, the rest of the top 10 of my models: Patrick Fishburne, Wesley Bryan, Joseph Bramlett, Kevin Roy, and Ryan Gerard coming in, rounding out the top 10. So Ryan Gerard is interesting because if you're just looking at recent form, he is the king of recent form, right? Like, he's a young guy coming up on the PGA Tour who is playing some really good golf. 3 straight top 15 finishes at Farmers, at Mexico, and at the Cognizant Classic, and he's pretty much green across the board. Every ball striking category has been green all 3 of those weeks. Narrowly red on around the green at Mexico, narrowly red with the putter at the Cognizant, but like, this is a really good looking recent form card for Ryan Gerard. So if you are somebody who is a recent form truther, then Ryan Gerard would have to be one of your guys here this week. And I totally understand why he comes in as number 10 in my model. And he's a guy that, probably in terms of all the pay up options this week, he's the most appealing to me there at $10,000. Now, if we were just to look at the board as a whole, I kind of already mentioned my strategy of, not necessarily feeling the need to, fill out all the salary, right? Like, I don't think you need to spend everything. But if we're looking at the board as a whole, this week, I do think that Gerard is my favorite pay-up option. Nicholas Norgard is a guy who is very well-traveled, very good recent approach play, very long off the tee. Last 2 starts have been 25th and 34th, no history at this event. He doesn't have a whole lot of history on Paspalum on the PGA Tour, but I'm sure in his ventures on the DP World Tour he's played there. So I don't think he's a bad look at 10,200, but I do think my preferred pay-up option is going to be Ryan Gerard, as we already mentioned. Another guy that I want to talk about is Matt Wallace. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he won one of the Paspalum courses. I want to say it was Corrales. Let me double check that. If it would let me sort, it won't let me sort. Okay. Well, I do think he won at Corrales. Yes, he did. So he does have history of winning on Paspalum on long golf courses, on tropical golf courses. And what I like about his profile, it's not necessarily the best, but he's just bleeding strokes with the putter right now. And so if he's just able to show up to this tournament and putt to his average, he's probably going to be in pretty good shape. But I mean, that sounds like it's asking for a lot, right? But like, putting is the easiest thing to flip on the PGA Tour, because sometimes, it's just make or miss. Like, sometimes, putts roll in, sometimes they don't. And if he's just able to flip that, then he's going to be in very good shape for this tournament. Now, Pearson Coody is a guy that I don't mind playing at $8,900 either. I just think he's really talented. I think it's only a matter of time before he wins on the PGA Tour. Now, he's got a not so great statistical profile because he's kind of dependent on his driver and his putter to win him the tournament. But this is the type of course that I don't want to say you can get away with that. I don't think get away with is the right word, but I do think that if you do drive it well and you do putt it well, you're going to be putting yourself in pretty good position here in this turn. Rico Hoey is another guy that if you're an approach play truther, you got to play. However, he is truly horrendous with the putter. Truly horrendous. Don't advise watching him putt if you have money on him, because it's been really bad. But the approach play has been really good. He was pretty much dead last of everybody who made the cut at the Cognizant Classic in putting. So if you think that moving over to Paspalum greens, it could help that a little bit, and he continues the recent ball striking, he could be a guy to look out for. Lonto Griffin is another guy I'm going to mention. I really like Lonto this week. I think you play Lonto when he's at long golf courses and when he's in good approach form, and check. Right. This week is at a long golf course. He isn't in good approach form. He gained over a stroke per round in Mexico, lost half a stroke per round at the Waste Management Phoenix Open, but gained over a stroke per round at the Farmers. And Mexico and Farmers, in terms of being long golf courses, are much more what I'm looking at this week. So I do think this is a really good spot for Lonto. He's going to be a guy that I'm probably going to be playing a ton in DFS. And then Michael Thorbjornson's another guy that I like a lot. I think he's a very good bet to win. He's just a young guy coming up on the PGA Tour who mashes the ball off the tee. He's supremely talented. talented. It's only a matter of time before he wins a golf tournament. And the Puerto Rico Open has kind of been the breakout point for a lot of young golfers, right? Like you think of Tony Finau, Victor Hovland getting their first wins here. Michael Thorbjornsen could be that guy, and I'm willing to give that a chance. 7,900 on DraftKings, and I think he's a very reasonable outright bet to win. Now, other than that, there's not a whole lot of other guys I want to talk about. ADDC, Adrian Dumont de Chassar, is probably a guy that I'm going to be playing in DFS. He was sixth here at this tournament last year. He's been playing primarily on the DP World Tour this year, but he ended the fall pretty strong at Bermuda and at the RSM. He's been playing well on the DP World Tour. I'm willing to roll him out here in this spot. And then Garrick Higgo is another one that I want to talk about. So he's another guy that has been playing golf on the DP World Tour as well as the PGA Tour, but he's been like deceptively good this year. I think a lot of people wrote Higgo off, and like Geno Smith, he didn't write back. And this would be a great spot for him to come through with again, because this guy has won on the DP World Tour. He won at the Canary Islands, which is a tropical location. He won on the PGA Tour at Congaree, which is kind of like a beachy golf course, right? So I do think this is a pretty good spot for him. He made the cut at the Farmers, but he's playing well on the DP World Tour. I do think that this is not a bad spot for Garrick Higgo. I think he's going to be a very good sleeper value play in DFS. And honestly, after that, the bottom of this field is pretty bad, y'all. So I don't think this is really a spot where I want to target too many guys that are that far down the board. One guy I will mention, much like Michael Thorbjornsen, John Pak is a guy that was really talented in college. It's only a matter of time before he gets his first win. I think he could be a guy that we're looking at as a breakthrough winner here at the Puerto Rico Open. But really, that's the only guy in the 6K range that I honestly really want to get to. Like it's pretty bad other than that, if we're being honest. All right, but that is going to do it for our preview of the Puerto Rico Open. Hopefully, we gave you guys everything you need to know in order to make some smart bets and win some money in DFS this week. If this helped you out in any way, please hit the like button on YouTube. It helps me out a ton. And go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That way you can be with us for the rest of the PGA Tour season, as well as all of our college basketball content that is coming out as we continue through to the NCAA tournament as well. But that is going to be... that's going to be the end of the episode, y'all. So hopefully we gave you guys all the information you needed to pick some winners this week. Best of luck to you guys at the Puerto Rico Open, and I will see you guys next time.